Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Zadara All Partner webinar today. We'll be starting shortly in a couple of minutes. Welcome to all of you, and we're happy for a very good panel today and what should be an outstanding discussion on Zadara's new Compute as a Service platform. We'll be starting shortly. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start. Welcome to Zadara's All Partner presentation. Today's webinar will discuss our new Compute as a Service platform. I want to welcome everyone that has joined across the USA. I should say that we're very happy to have the attendance we have today, consisting of our partners, both value-added resellers and a very nice blend of managed service providers and everyone who wants to learn about Compute as a platform, Compute as a Service platform. I'm Joe Cicchetti. I run the channel at Zadara, and we've got a great panel. I'm going to throw it right now to both Doug Jury and Justin Windsor, who are your panelist hosts today. So, Justin, thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. So Justin Windsor, one of our partner business managers here at Zadara. I want to thank everyone for joining today. Again, we're going to introduce you to our new Compute as a Service platform with Jeff Francis here to add to what we already are doing around storage as a service. And then with that, I also want to introduce Doug Jury, who is our VP of Partner Marketing. Doug?
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody. We have 25 partners on today. Holy cow, that's great. Across the country. Many of you probably have already talked with me at one point in time. And so this is going to be an ongoing series where we're going to keep you folks up to speed on some of the most important things coming out of Zadara that you might need to know as well. And we're going to have some follow-ons in January, so be watching your calendars for that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Jeff. And Jeff, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Francis, and I'm our GM of our Zadara Compute platform. It's my pleasure to be able to review this information with you today. And so without further ado, I'm just going to mention at the top of our presentation here, I'm going to sprinkle some general description of our service model and the services inside of it, the value proposition, and how it's really positioned to help enable our partners with success. We're also going to touch on commercials so that you get some real meat and some real things you can grab onto in here. And then lastly, we're going to end our presentation today with a setup for the next presentation, which you'll hear about in our January timeframe, which speaks to how to really uncover opportunities in this area of Compute as a Service and some of the value proposition statements that you can also start to share with your customers. So today is really the intro, and like I said, there's going to be some meat inside of there for you. So without further ado, we'll say, why cloud services?
So Jeff, I think maybe you're not sharing your screen, but maybe it's just me. So let's go ahead and just review that. There we go. That's much better. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for that. And so let's get started. We start off with why cloud services and why now? So first of all, we can help organizations such as yourselves that already have a great customer base and help you to increase wallet share with those same customers. And this is a good margin wallet share that we're offering here. So this allows you to, again, grow that revenue with customers that are already consuming some sort of hosting services today. They might be utilizing you as a partner for one of the hyperscalers. You might be providing bare metal or VMware-based private cloud hosting for those customers. This again allows you that to the extent that you're able to grow that relationship through these services, it will again add a very good margined profitable business for you and your customers. The second item we want to hit on here is that around these cloud services, we can also assist organizations with being able to increase their average revenue per unit. And so this is where literally the same footprint that you already have, that you're already paying for every month, we can help increase the yield that you receive from that. And the simple description here is that we are a cloud service in a box. And so we can be both hosted up in the public cloud somewhere for customers, or we can be located on your data center floor, a private cloud type of a setting, or we can also be hosted on the floor of your customer in a multi-site type of configuration. So for whatever those footprints look like today, without spending any CapEx, we can help you increase the yield and the revenue you receive from the same assets you currently have in place today. Touching a little bit lightly on the next couple of messages, I'll just say that as you start to grow a true consumption-based infrastructure as a service offer with your customers, this will make stickier relationships. So if you are offering things such as bare metal hosting today or colocation services, to be sure, but if you're also a value-added reseller where you have a catalog of services you're providing to your customer today, the fact is that as you get higher up the stack, you get to a full infrastructure as a service type of self-provisioned solution. These are simply stickier, and is part of how the hyperscalers have been so successful in the marketplace, is basically giving a full set of tools in the toolbox, if you will. And so this can help you get to there very quickly. And that's one of the last messages on here. Besides just attracting more customers with more tools in the toolkit, we can help you get fast time to market. For you to be able to build an offer of your own using VMware, it's measured by quarters of the calendar. This is something that you can set up an order from Zadara and you can have installed in a mere 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the integration time with your particular colocation setting. Another important set of value props to take a look at as we get into describing the service is what are the benefits for your end customers? What are they typically looking for, and how does this solve for that? So the first one is the promise of the edge, right? And so infrastructure anywhere you want it. So as mentioned before, we can be both hosted up in a public cloud type of arrangement, or we can be inside the four walls of where you provide hosting. And lastly, that on-site model can also be with your end customers. We have customers today that consume our storage cloud in places down in Brazil. There's actually one down in a mine shaft somewhere. And this is just a testament. I mentioned this because it's a testament real quick to the fact that the entire solution is hosted entirely in this box that we put into the data center floor. So that means the web presence that the customer comes in to manage the assets, everything. It's infrastructure where the customer wants it. And due to the fact that it's where they need it, and it's an edge type of solution as well, it means you're going to get low latency and very high speed to that. Now, the next bullet item is an interesting value prop that doesn't usually come with the edge, and that's a true consumption-based model. Most edge models, you're going to find that there'll be a charge for a number of compute nodes. And that's where, it might start for 3 or 4 or 5 compute nodes. This offer truly is consumption-based, consumption at the VM level, consumption at the block volume storage level. These are components that if you think about the hyperscalers, you think about AWS, VM, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform today, when you look at their billing units, they're not charging their customers for an entire compute node or a cluster or 3 or 5 of them. They're charging all the way down to a VM. And so the first and the second value prop for your customers here, again, don't typically go together. And we actually have a solution for both of the best of both worlds, if you will. So edge computing, consumption-based. The other thing that a lot of customers are going to grab onto quickly is the fact that our pricing model has been radically simplified. And it is simply for the purpose of being able to make it a lot easier to budget for these environments and a lot easier to understand what is the price comparison between a Zadara hosted model that you're exposing your services to your customers, or in the alternative, if you were to look at either the hyperscalers or you were to look at something that you host with a private cloud, as you may be doing today, our pricing model, when we get to that portion of the presentation, we hope you'll agree that it's an actual pleasant surprise of how simplified it is. And as the bullet item on the slide says, it's mainly due to the fact that we have eliminated some of the charges that are hard to budget for, such as egress fees. Not all customers know how much, how their applications are chatty or how much data they're going to drive over a connection. So we have no egress fees. Transactions per seconds, IOPS, these things are not a part of our model, and that's part of the benefits to why the pricing is a lot easier to understand. We do end this particular set of value propositions for your end customers saying that in the storage area, we're very proud to say that we have a lot of strong capabilities there. Strong capabilities for, just thinking about the hyperscalers for a moment. If you have a customer that desires to have dedicated storage arrays where they have their own exclusive drives that are not shared with other customers, that's a checkbox you can put on our platform. We've been offering that for almost a decade now. And so this is an area where we're proud to say that our storage platform part of our infrastructure as a service is definitely an A+ part of our offer. And when you see some of the use cases around data mirroring, the fact that object storage, we offer immutability, there's just some of those features that when it comes to the ability to deliver an edge cloud, you again won't typically find these type of capabilities. So we're proud to be able to bring those to the market. And then I'm going to hit on the fast time to value message a second time here. We can help you get into this type of infrastructure hosting a lot quicker than other avenues you may have available to you, or we could complement something you're doing today. But for your end users, this is a complete self-servicing portal. So think about this analogous to the hyperscaler experience where a customer comes into a portal, they get registered, and then they can go right in and start provisioning assets right away. It's the same afternoon experience. So as I start to describe the offer, I first want to go into a few of the target use cases. So we find that while the hyperscalers make a tremendous service, it's a very valuable set of offers that they bring to the marketplace. There are customers that are with AWS today, and they're looking at a couple of attributes to what the spend that they have with AWS today. They may be having difficulty around finding either consistent performance or predictable costs. There are solutions for both of those avenues with the hyperscalers, but again, it's been difficult for some of the customers to be able to land that one. They may also be looking for a way to save on cost. Maybe they have non-production workloads that they wish that they had an option B for being able to spend a little bit less. And preferably for non-production workloads, they might even want that inside of their four walls or somewhere that's closer to them. In this particular case for AWS repatriation, we have an offer, again, that we can put it inside your four walls, inside your customer's four walls, to be able to offer a service that looks very similar and offer them a predictable cost and a consistent level of performance, just simply due to our simplified price model and the fact that this is something that can be an edge cloud for a private cloud for your customer. We also meet other customers in the marketplace where they're the never cloud customers. They really believe that their requirements cannot be satisfied in a consumption-based model. The majority of customers like this, again, are looking for dedicated assets, things like disk drives. They may be looking for edge cloud solutions in areas where the cloud doesn't extend to where they are today. The nice thing that we offer here is we can help you with those customers where we can give that consumption cloud-like experience anywhere they want it, but it's also, our solution looks very familiar to how the hyperscalers offer their services. So even down to the way that the services are organized, there's this familiarity to it of how things are organized around compute, networking, and storage. So there's a familiarity there. And lastly, when you're talking to your customers that really believe they have a cloud mandate or they would like to go to the cloud, but they really think that their requirements are such that it's difficult to fit, this is a really good scenario that you could come and bring this offer to the table and help them be able to get over that particular stair step that they need to get to.
Hey, Jeff, this is Doug. I do have a question online here. And also for you folks out there, please ask the questions as we go through this, and we'll go ahead and answer those in line here possibly. But this one partner says, I have a customer that has both a data center they're a bit in the colocation facility, and they also have some hybrid cloud. So as I blend these together, can you kind of share an advantage that Zadara might be able to bring to the table with both DC colo and hybrid cloud?
Absolutely. And so where the value proposition starts is that if a customer is looking for somewhere to be able to reduce expense, perhaps put their non-production assets into a different hosting model. Let's say it would be for their hybrid at the edge or their hybrid at their headquarter location. This again represents a tremendous capability to be able to host virtual machine workloads and then be able to graduate them to in a multi-cloud type of a strategy. If it's going to end up with an Amazon hyperscale or Microsoft or Google, Oracle, IBM, and the others, for customers that look like that, this first gives them that first step of being able to find a lower cost way of hosting those workloads. The other thing that's very interesting here is that when you're just generally speaking about multi-cloud, you're looking for that promise of being able to migrate workloads from one technology. It might be the way that AWS hypervisor works to another technology, what you'll find in Azure, to another technology. They might have a private cloud with VMware and the ESX hypervisor. When you practice these type of capabilities, our platform again is a nice fit because we're an OpenStack based hypervisor system. And so now we kind of have the one universal that has migration in and out of all those different hyperscaler clouds. And that's just due to the fact that the OpenStack industry is pretty wide, and we can help customers that are doing those multi-cloud type of experiences that need that transportability between the different hypervisor technologies. Please follow that question up if I didn't get to the particular aspect you were looking for there, but I think the theme of when you want to go multi-cloud, you really need to have that transportability of your workloads between the different major technologies out there for the hypervisor. I want to speak for just a moment about where Zadara is coming from for this, and what is it that our footprint is, as I mentioned up in the public space, is quite wide and diverse. So first of all, yes, we were founded almost 10 years ago, and so one of the things that we find ourselves with is that when it comes to the storage industry, for a number of years now, we've been in a place where we have a footprint around the world, and I'm going to get to that in another slide here, that speaks to where we're hosted today, and which ones are private clouds, which ones are publicly available clouds, so you can publicly provision Zadara today. Where we meet you today is we offer this full infrastructure as a service stack, mainly due to the fact that we have added a compute platform that's already mature in its own right. It is based off of OpenStack, as I was just alluding to a few moments ago. And with this capability, it brings a secure and mature compute technology that we've married with our storage. And guess what? We have a footprint of over 70 locations around the world where publicly you can consume Zadara storage. And so we're working to sequence through that list of locations to be able to add compute to the menu. Let me actually extend that a little bit further to say that when it's storage as a service, this is a service, again, that we've offered for a number of years and have had very wide adoption with a lot of the major companies you'll hear about out there, where we are a software-defined storage stack. We're the same code base and the same product offer if it's a small edge location, if it's a centralized data center, or if it's one of our large clusters in the public arena, where for 19 locations around the world, we're sitting next, adjacent to an AWS data center or an Azure data center or a Google Cloud Platform data center. And we're providing storage for workloads in those environments today and have been for years, where if you want to describe something that's block-based storage, file-based, or object-based storage, we provide a cloud-in-a-box capability. Again, it's self-hosted where there's a provisioning portal and it has an e-commerce front end to it. And the customers can come into this common platform and they can choose which media types they want to deploy because, again, it is a software-defined storage service. And within minutes, they could create, if they want an all-flash array with Intel Optane to be the front-end cache, something pretty darn high performance, they can do that. If they'd like to have something that's really wide scale and really low cost, such as object storage, they can go into that same service. They can go ahead and quantify their storage configuration needs, and then pow, this system what it does is it has a block of assets here. So as an MSP or a VAR provider, you don't have to worry about stranded capacity. We take care of the orchestration for all of these assets to be able to deliver these capabilities to the end customers. And remember something that we were just saying earlier in the presentation. Our delivery model is that we can deliver this cloud in a box, either in a co-location center or a customer's private data center, or we also have this pre-installed at a number of locations around the world that customers can break off a chunk of this software-defined storage and have this at a moment's notice. What we've done now is we've extended that with the Compute as a Service platform to where you'll see with these, these graphics may look very familiar to many of you. So we have our storage area network capabilities, and this is that cloud that I was just referring to, the software-defined storage. We marry that with a pair of 100 gig Ethernet switches. And now with these very scalable pizza boxes, you'll see these are 2 nodes to a pizza box, the left and right side type of system. We now offer the ability to host virtual machines, their associated elastic block storage, all of the virtualized networking constructs that you're familiar with. And we also have intelligent networking. And this intelligent networking includes things where you can connect auto-scale groups to intelligent load balancers. So as you see the load on a particular system increase, it can increase through auto-scaling, and your load balancer will automatically subscribe new objects as it grows the farm or decreases the farm. And so that's why this is intelligent networking versus standard networking, where your load balancers may face a static number of web servers or application servers. Sitting beneath all of these services, as I mentioned earlier, we have our robust storage capabilities. So all of these compute assets have access to, for large shared data stores, block-based storage services, file-based, and object-based. I'm going to go into a use case a little bit later in this presentation, but this slide here does give you the high level about the service that we're speaking to you about today. And that's the opportunity to be able to offer a full infrastructure as a service capability with a cloud in a box that can be located anywhere that you would like it, or you can also consume this where it's pre-installed in a number of public cloud sites. We call this our boxcar diagram, and it just drives this message with a little bit further detail. And so as you can see here, as it's signified by your data center, for MSPs that operate a data center themselves, they may have all of those standard services where at a minimum, they're doing all the hardware, the environmentals, the security, the other bits that you would associate with a co-location. But you may also be doing inside of those racks and cabinets, the actual customer will have bare metal. You may be managing their network, some of their servers, et cetera. With our storage as a service technology, where we come from is that we have all of these capabilities, again, software-defined storage that comes across a very high-speed networking fabric. And now customers, whether it's a transient or temporary need that they have for migrating data, or if they need a long-term 12-month, 36-month solution, whatever it would be, they can go ahead and create these virtual storage arrays inside of their systems. And they enjoy the fact that if they need more volumes, they need more drives, they can go into this system and go ahead and increase capacity. If they need to retire some of those assets or they want to reduce the size of a virtual controller for periods of seasonality, or maybe on the weekends you want to slow things down or hibernate some of your storage controllers, all of that can be done through a web interface here. And these virtual appearances make the adjustments as so. The other interesting thing to look at is that with our storage as a service, we have data replication capabilities that not only sit inside the 4 walls of our partners, but they can also mirror to remote sites where at 73 designated locations around the world today in 18 different countries. You can take these volumes and you can mirror them to a remote site. Why would your end customers want to do that? There are 2 primary use cases that we find. The first one is you may have customers that want to have just geographic diversity or protection of their data. And so being able to mirror this in a near real time type of fashion is something that gets that data to a secondary location, and it's a convenient way to get that data out of the geo that they're in. The second use case is is they may want to consume that data from a remote location. So let's say, for example, this data center might be in San Francisco, California, and they have a field office in Tokyo, Japan, that would like to be able to interrogate this data. So by replicating this across the Zadara network into a Tokyo, Japan location, which we have, they're able to connect to that locally and get high-speed access to those assets, as opposed to making a remote connection across the Pacific Ocean to where these assets are hosted in San Francisco, California. Again, the benefit for you as our partner is that you didn't have to install any infrastructure at these 73 locations. Being a member of the Zadara Storage as a Service network, you have that capability for your customers to be enabled to put Tokyo on the menu. And once they decide that they want to replicate to Tokyo, these volumes will show up over here. And at the end of the month, Zadara will bill you, our partner, for the services that your customers consume. And then you continue to own the relationship with your customer. This is your customer service. This is your relationship and your billing to your customer, even for the services they consume at remote locations. I want to touch, before we move on, one more time on the fact that our standard business model is that everything we're offering here is hourly based consumption pricing. And so that means that for the establishment of a storage area network, there is no longer the concern of which drive controller should I buy? How many disk drives do we need to start for the next 6 months? And then we're going to grow from there. All of these questions about how much and what if are now virtualized because this is delivered as a software-defined storage service. And so if the customer you have has an emphasis on time to market for a particular application, they're okay to over provision a little bit in the first couple of weeks of that application deployment, because once they've got the application up and stabilized and running with their end users, they can then take a look at consumption maps and they can determine if their appetite for storage is a little bit smaller than they originally intended. Or in the converse, if it looks like they're going to need storage to grow faster than they anticipated, again, just like the hyperscalers, you have all of this elastic capability. So it really takes the decision-making process and makes it very agile and nimble for your customers due to the fact that they can make changes on the fly. The next thing we want to extend this picture to show is that now that we've added infrastructure as a service, or elastic compute, if you will, now it's the same model. It's still your data center for the MSPs that have a data center. For our VAR partners, it's for the data centers that you represent. It's still the same 4 walls. There's still going to be customer bare metal servers and networking gear and other things in these cabinets. And but they'll still have that opportunity to grab virtualized storage services at wire speed locally. And this is high availability, and they can still mirror to these remote locations. But now what changed with the picture? They have an internally hosted, completely self-provisioned portal for infrastructure as a service, where your customers can now start to build virtual machines on top or import virtual machines on top. They can build virtual networking complexes and intelligent networking complexes. And what is your customer experience? Again, it's your data center, it's your customers, they're utilizing your hosting services. So the relationship continues to be between your customers and your organization as you're representing the services you expose to them. But oh yeah, by the way, if you have a customer in San Francisco, California, inside your 4 walls, and they need 2, 3, 4 VMs over in Tokyo, Japan, maybe they want a Windows domain controller, maybe they want another application server of some type for a virtual appliance. Well, they could host that on top of one of Zadara's 73 locations as we build out our network. The 73 locations exist already today. The storage area network services are already there today. We're now going to be expanding the ability for them to do infrastructure as a service hosting. And when this occurs, the customer will continue to receive their billing from you. This will continue to be your platform that you offer to them. And as these services are consumed by the hour, Zadara will simply bill you directly for these services. So it allows you to virtually extend your infrastructure without making those purchasing choices of which data center do we want to land into, how are we going to build the connectivity that we need, what if next month our number of customers can cut their consumption in half. We have removed all of those variables from the equation. And then, oh yeah, let me not skip over the, oh, we just doubled the consumption in Tokyo, Japan that customer needs. You don't have to worry about capacity planning because again, that's on us to be able to provide enough infrastructure. And to the previous slide you saw, enough pizza boxes to be able to provide the amount of pizza that customers are demanding out of these remote data centers. So now we've had a chance to describe the drivers for the offer, what the offer is itself, and how it applies in some of these data center configurations. Now we want to take you through a little bit deeper dive on how the services are built. How are they constructed? And so this gives you the next level of detail that you can share internally with your solution architects and some of your solution design personnel, and thinking of how this might apply to some of your customer solutions. This specific table is organized in 3 areas. The first one and the longest is what services we have around compute. The first thing we want to touch upon is speaking about that beyond just being a Me Too offer, you're going to find that we have unique capabilities that as your customers get closer to, they're really going to appreciate the platform. So we do have the compute instances that you'll see, whether it's going to be a VMware private cloud or if you're doing a hyperscaler cloud. But what we also offer is the ability for customers to come in and create their own custom instance types. What does that mean? Well, some customers are going to want an 8 virtual CPU by 128 gig RAM server. This is a size that is not common. It's what in the industry we call, it would be a memory optimized virtual machine. When you look at the hyperscalers, they have a predefined set of sizes. And so you can have whatever virtual machine size you want as long as it's on their menu. And so it's a little bit of a straitjacket, especially as you get to the larger capacities. With VMware, due to the fact the customer is really acquiring things an entire storage or compute node at a time, VMware allows you these freedoms. And this is where we bring you the benefits of the hypercloud with also the benefits of an edge cloud by being able to customize those instance types. And this translates into better performance for the customer, lower pricing for the customer. And lastly, for applications that have a high licensing cost, think about Microsoft SQL Server as one example. By being able to optimize for low CPUs and high memory, you'll get high performance, but you'll also have low licensing costs. So custom instance types, those capabilities you've heard about with auto-scaling groups, being able to automate the application of SSH key pairs to get in, standard reference library for Linux and Windows operating system images, those are a part of the compute offer. But then it continues on to where we also offer tools thinking about the migration process. Our platform both allows you to import OVAs and of course QCOW's images on demand and dynamically inside the control console, but we also have batch migration tools. The reason that batch is something worth highlighting with your end users is that if they did want to bring across 10 VMs, 50 VMs, 100 VMs, more than that, they would usually break these into very small chunks and they might have to manage manually how these are going to come across. So we've built an automation tool that, in the example of VMware, allows you to bring the agent into your vCenter environment and you point it at a folder and you tell it to sequentially go through the servers and go ahead and bring those images over to the Zadara compute platform. It does that by examining the guest OS, removing the VMware drivers that are there for storage and network, and then transplanting in the OpenStack drivers, which are certified by Red Hat, IBM, the OpenStack drivers. So they're very widely accepted into your VMs as they come across the wire. So I just spoke for a moment to our migration tools. They're important also to think about because as the customer looks at different platforms, of course, they may want to migrate their workloads in and out. And the last thing to think about on the compute side is this is that message about we're more than just a Me Too. You will find that there are graphical presentations of assets such as servers and their network interrelationships and things where, again, in our platform, we've just created new types of capabilities which make for the server administrator, for the application administrators, it makes this platform a lot easier to operate and maintain. We did mention earlier in this presentation that things look very familiar to how things look in AWS. They're familiar to the extent that we've organized our services in a similar way And we also have API plugin capability, or emulation, if you will, of a number of AWS services. So there's a number of your customers that have probably trained on AWS. They may even have certifications. You may also have customers that have written scripts to directly interface and automate things that happen in the EC2 world, or the load balancers with the ELB, autoscale groups, etc. These are a number of APIs that we've built an emulator for, and we continue to maintain syntax compatibility. Why? So that customers can maintain that portability of a multi-cloud solution. They can have some of their assets in the AWS hyperscaler side, and they can have some assets with you with Zadara. And they could even extend that further if they want to use tools like Terraform to multiple platforms. Terraform is one of those capabilities, of course, where a customer can describe an application and its environment, and through the virtual press of a button, they can deploy that application environment in different places. Customers enjoy that today with AWS, with Azure, with Google Cloud Platform, and the others. And they can enjoy that same capability with Zadara by telling the Terraform script it's actually deploying to an Amazon cloud, but then they point it at your data center, and our system takes over from there. It's just due to the fact that we can emulate these APIs, and we also emulate the Terraform drivers. Moving our attention for a quick moment to the storage side, I wanted to mention again that we have a lot of capabilities we can speak to around the storage side, but some of the differentiators you can bring to differentiate your offer for your end customers include some very interesting things, even beyond the mirroring between different sites. That's an important one to be sure. But we also provide controls, fine-grained controls around enforcing quotas. Now you might say to yourself, why would I want to enforce a quota with storage? Isn't more storage good for everybody? Good for the customer, they have more information, information's valuable. Good for the reseller due to the fact that more storage means more margin, etc. What we find in a lot of conversations with customers, this goes both on the compute side and on the storage side, is they're looking to be able to maintain budgets every month. And what they don't want is that surprise budget one month when their storage has grown significantly and now they have a budget issue that they have to work with. You don't have this problem when you're not talking object storage due to the fact that block-based services are bound by the number of disk drives you typically deploy. File-based services have a similar limitation. You set the size, 100 terabytes, 500 terabytes, 10 terabytes, whatever it would be. With object storage, it just grows very nicely and linearly. And so this is where having quota controls put on a container or put on an account allows you, again, those type of fine-grained controls so customers can have that secure of knowledge that they're not going to blow up their budget based on how much they go put up into the object storage. Moving into the network section, I want to re-emphasize the point we made earlier about the fact that we don't have egress fees as a part of this offer. So that simplifies things a lot, and you might wonder to yourself, okay, so how do we accommodate that? Because somebody has to pay for the internet networking. And so the way that we approach that is if this is a private cloud that we put in your data center, or if it's private cloud that we put into your customer's data center on your behalf, full stop, the internet connectivity and the internetworking between different sites, that's all up to that private cloud. And so there is no reason for us to charge for that. And so you get the benefit of no egress fees, and you can be wire speed to all sorts of assets in an edge cloud type of a setting. If you or your customers do consume these services in one of our public settings, and there would be a need for a connection to the public internet, you can consume fixed internet of 100 megs, 200 megs, 1 gig, and 10 gig increments. So this will allow you to pay a fixed price for internet working. And for example, if your needs are not that high or your end customers' needs are not that high, they pay a low rate for just a fixed value of 100 megs, to make an example. When we get to the end of our, the standard part of our presentation here, we're gonna look at the pricing menu. And again, it's very transparent, just like you see with the hyperscalers out there. And I'll make the point once again about the no egress fees and the fixed bandwidth internet. Before we leave this slide, I do want to give one additional honorable mention to something called direct subnet. So this is a construct that some of your customers will be familiar with VMware, where they can have a high-speed network connection to local assets. This same analogy doesn't really translate to the hyperscalers, because with the hyperscalers, they don't really allow customers to host their bare metal assets inside of the hyperscaler clouds, if you will. You can do that in an adjacent configuration, but when you're adjacent to a hyperscaler, you've now introduced 2, maybe 3 milliseconds of round trip time. In our model here, we can host bare metal assets both in our public cloud and have that direct subnet where it's less than a millisecond to get to those assets. Or of course, if we put it in your data center or in your customer's data center inside their 4 walls, you can enjoy high-speed optimized network access to those objects. And again, we can speak more to that in a more detailed session. But just know that as a company that has a very strong storage heritage, we also have a very strong high-speed networking heritage, and that has definitely been one of the cornerstones to our virtual hosting platform. Want to make a quick mention to our pricing simplicity by mentioning what are the units of measure that a customer can consume services by. So the chart kind of explains itself, but you can see that there are seven different configurations here, or the customer can create their own custom definitions. And that again is just flexibility that this platform offers. It also offers, with these asterisks, you can see again, this is consumed in the public arena, fixed networking fees. So you don't have to worry about what to budget, how to budget, what are we going to need to do next month about an application that becomes more chatty. These things are no longer a concern. And also I want to point our attention to, when it comes to large storage farms, think about 100 terabytes, a half a petabyte or more. Egress fees start to really add up as you start to add data to those larger data stores. So this is where the ability to enjoy a fixed bandwidth internet can yield bigger and bigger dividends as the customer storage pools get larger and larger and larger. So there's just looking at where we come from again, I wanted to repeat the message of we already have an established footprint of over 300 clouds around the world. But when you look at our private clouds and our public clouds on the storage side put together. Now, for customers that are looking to consume things locally, they still have benefits of places like Dallas, Texas is not particularly well served or covered, if you think about it, with the hyperscalers in the market. Due to just the benefit of how they've built such a great offer around the West Coast and the East Coast of a lot of robust assets, you have about, there could be 80 milliseconds of round trip time here. And that starts to bend the curve, if you will, of how many applications are, especially interactive applications, are still going to be responsive enough. This is a simple example of how, if you can offer your customer some assets from our public installation in Dallas, Texas, or if you want to work with your data center that could be, let's say you're in Houston, Texas, and you want to offer assets that are there local in the Houston market, we can put a cloud in the box on your data center floor, and now you're going to be, 10 milliseconds or 5 milliseconds away from your local customers. And if you're on a metro network with your customer, you could bend that curve to much less than 5 milliseconds. It could be 1 to 2 milliseconds, depending on that local provider. We definitely wanted to share that we're very proud to be working with a number of really premier names when you think about the hosting world and the internet connectivity world, but also want to emphasize the message with you today. The opportunity here is to offer this virtualized hosting to your customers, that if it's inside your 4 walls or inside their data center, that's already a differentiation to your offer. But furthermore, if a customer wants to be high availability in your particular metro, in your market, you're going to want a secondary site. Now, you might have a secondary site, and this would still apply. You can have one in each of your 2 sites in a local metro. But if the opportunity before you needs to have high availability and redundancy with data centers, you can partner with one of our kits that are installed in some of these places to make that metro high availability cluster that your customer may be looking for. So don't forget about the opportunities to actually partner with some of our public clouds with a cloud that we build just for you. I want to move on now through the slides a little bit faster because I want to get to the actual pricing slide, and then we'll come back to this VMware use case in just a moment. we're going to take a quick listen for what type of messages would you listen for as you think about the conversation you're going to have with your customers. How would you know that this particular service might be a real big value add to move the conversation forward? So we know from experience that speaking with clients that talk about any M&A activity, this is definitely going to get into that place where you'll be able to interject into the conversation. Oh, do you have a way of migrating, and then you insert X, whatever they're doing there, to a new platform? Would you like to have a new normalized platform? Would you like to have a new way of doing things in the go forward models? This is where you're going to find a lot of energy in your customers to be able to kind of determine what is going to be the go forward with, if it's a merge of two organizations. This again is a great comment to the multi-cloud that was the question from earlier in this presentation. They may have some up in AWS. Another organization may have some down in VMware. How do you come up with a common platform that allows them to have that low cost, local edge going forward, but still have that familiarity and compatibility with the tools that they might want to use up in production with some of their production workloads in the hyperscaler? The other thing that you're going to hear, we think quite often, is companies are looking for creative ideas all the time of, okay, I've got my hosting costs and I'm always looking for what's the new thing? What's the next best thing when it comes to being able to find ways to host for less money or get more performance for the same investment I already have. If you hear words like that, just know that again, the ability to do an edge type of hosting model that's consumption based down to the virtual machine and its storage volumes, this is unique in the marketplace that way. Just to outline that a little bit further, what you're normally talking about with an edge cloud is, in the most common definition, it's going to be 5 compute nodes. And that can be on Nutanix or it can be on VMware. And both of those are very nice solutions, but you're going to be able to offer something that gets them what their business needs for a lower cost basis in most cases. There will be places that they're using something very unique on top of Nutanix or VMware, and we can be a part of helping to identify if that's a part of your customer's use case, and et cetera. But I wanted to say that if you see a conversation around what is the next new widget in virtual hosting, or what are the ways that I can optimize my spend, definitely that's a conversation starter for this particular capability. I like the last 2 bullets we talked about here, mainly just due to the fact that if you see organizations that are just kind of, okay, we have a lot of systems, they're legacy, they're older, we're looking to move into the cloud, and or it's their, every 2-year, every 3-year cycle. You already know your customer, you know this 2 or 3-year cycle with your customer. The opportunity to start optimizing how a customer organizes acquiring the next new technology. Remember, Intel processors, AMD, all your x64 platforms, they make some pretty substantial improvements every 2 to 3 years. Substantial would mean 25% or greater in the performance of what the compute can do. As a result, companies that are looking at their spending cycles, if you think that the customer may be coming up on an annual or a 2 or 3 year cycle, like we said, this is again the time to interject the kind of what's new out there in the world of virtual hosting and what are the differences and what are the benefits to it. So those are some things that we wanted to definitely point out to be looking for in your conversations with your customers. I definitely wanted to get to our public-facing pricing slide because I think this is also a topic of discussion you'll want to have with your customers. As you start to qualify that they may be interested in looking at alternative hosting models and this new way of doing, cloud in a box, if you will. So what this tells us are 2 things right off the bat. You can see that we have a simplified menu from the instance types, simplified menu from the way you consume storage, and then a simplified menu for the way you face network resources. What we offer is a standardized pricing list at list prices, and you're going to find that these are pretty much in lockstep with where you're going to find AWS and Azure. They're just very similar. And what's really nice is that since the customers will understand, especially your AWS customers will understand, a 2x8 is 10 cents an hour. That's just a general purpose statement that people would make, is that AWS specifically has an M4. It's been a general purpose workhorse for many organizations for a long time. The M4 series from AWS has been very effective and a great workhorse out there. So we've aligned Z4, similar methodology with the M4. When you look at a 2x8, again, list pricing is the same, but here's the magic. When you sign your customers up for a 12-month or a 36-month commitment, you can see there are significant discounts here. Now, here's one thing I wanted to make sure everybody was really, caught this particular aspect of this table. When you allow discounting to happen to your customers, and again, you can charge your customer any price that you like. These are just our reference prices here, and then our recommendation for how you can market these to your customers. But just know that there's a column over here to the right, and that you are guaranteed, even if you discount this for a three-year commitment at 50% off, which is a huge discount against these type of prices. These are hyperscaler type of prices. If you offer for 50% off, you still are guaranteed at least 25 points of margin out here. And in some designs, you're going to see that go higher as the size of the solution goes up. But the two aspects that I want to repeat twice on here is that you're still making a nice, comfortable margin over here, even when you're allowing these type of discounts to happen with your customers. So you're able to tell your customers, I have a consumption-based model that's either pre-installed up in public clouds so you can get it, or we can put it on your data center floor. It's consumption-based with pricing that's very similar to what they see out there. Plus, they get bigger discounts than they can get out there in the marketplace. So the bigger discounts is the first message. The second one is you're guaranteed margins on this over here. And so that's a big deal, because if you're selling your customer bare metal servers today, you're probably not making the amount of margin that I just described. And we believe as the solutions start to scale to dozens of servers or 50 to 100 servers, for example, then you're going to see, again, that the margin here is just going to really start to add up to allow you to get from the same customer relationship bigger margins. There's another aspect some of you may have already picked up on this table, and that is we also discount storage and networking. This is what you don't see up in the hyperscalers. They'll offer what's called reserved instances. And again, it's a very valuable service that they offer, but they'll require you to pay up front for, let's say you want to be in the M4 family. You can buy a certain grid of infrastructure in advance for 12 months, and it's yours to use. You pay cash in the beginning, or you can get into a savings plan, they call it, where you kind of pay in installments. But basically, you pay for all these instances, and if you don't use them, you lose the investment that you made that month for those instances because they were left unused. Here, what we do with Zadara is when your customer enters into a 1-year agreement or a 3-year agreement, they're committing to a portion of the revenue we're looking at here. So if they think they're going to spend $5,000 a month, the revenue floor on that would be substantially less than that. It would be much less than half of that for their spend. So there's two aspects to when we get into discounting, that we can still offer a flexible discounting that goes in the compute, goes into the storage, goes into the network, but it also allows them to have that commitment is lower than 100% of what they need to buy. Ending on this chart, I just wanted to say that this translates into server-based pricing that might look pretty disruptive to you. And so when you look at just the simple expression of a utility server, a 1x4, $39 a month might not seem like a bad price. And this is actually the starting place you would be with some of the hyperscalers. Now, you would have to add in data egress fees, maybe some of the storage access fees, things like that. But pushing all that to the side, the ability to discount that by half, the storage by half, the compute by half, this again really starts to drive the conversation home. Similarly, for a more powerful server, a 4x16, that's no slouch. 50 gigs of storage, let's even give it 100. That $8 turns into a whole $16 on a monthly basis. Now you're at, for that, it'd be 162 for 100 gigs of boot. Cut that in half, and now you're at $81 for a 4x16 that even had 100 gigs to start with. So I think we ran a little bit long on giving you the introduction of the service today, but hopefully by taking a look at our public-facing pricing, it does help drive home the message that not only is this a differentiated offer, but our simplified pricing makes a big difference in how your customers could look at how they would do hosting in the virtual space. With that, I'd like to open it up for the last couple of minutes for just general Q&A. But
I've got one here, Jeff. Could you talk about your proof of concept or POC program for one of my customers?
Thank you. And so what we have is with our already installed public cloud, the ability to provision assets. So let's say you needed a half dozen or 10 VMs, you needed some storage to go with that. We can provision that for a 2-week period and allow the customer to have a full production experience on our platform. So just like the hyperscalers, due to the fact that we have so much capacity installed, we can allow them to have a live experience. They can work with the portal, understand its capabilities and some of the nice features I spoke to. And then working with your account manager, if we have a plan for the test for the 2 weeks, we might be able to extend that further for more complex application sets.
Perfect. I have another one here. It talks about mirroring, and it says, how would the pricing work, or how would the invoices work if I basically used Zadara on the source and also Zadara on the destination? Do I pay for both sites or only when a disaster occurs?
So the replication that happens 365 days out of the year will occur to you for no charge if you're using our flat rate internet to be able to get out of your production cloud. So there are 2 expenses to doing data replication and consuming your storage. The first one is this replication fee, which you can see we can make that 0 if you're already buying fixed internet from us, because we'll use that same internet fabric. And then the second part of the question is that what about that copy? Let's say it was the San Francisco's production, and in Tokyo is where they have that secondary copy of their data. So in Tokyo, this is where, again, they would have that copy of a VPSA in the remote location. And so this would be charged by the hour, by the number of drives that are deployed and the controller in our standard pricing model that we have for VPSA. So there's 2 charges. One is this mirroring, which can be made 0 if you're using our infrastructure as a service and you already bought a pipe, 100 megs, 200 megs, whichever. And then there's also a charge for this storage array appearance that happens in the remote location.
That's perfect. Thank you for that. I'm assuming that answered the question. And I think I have one final question here, and it's what do you do for monitoring tools for this? How do I know whether I'm okay, whether I'm not okay? Is there any monitoring for the compute?
There are, and so with this fully managed service, we also offer user-based alerts and monitoring. So inside of the compute console, you're able to set up thresholds around CPU utilization, memory, network utilization. Not only are these metrics tracked and used for auto scaling, but they're also configurable so you can get your own notifications when certain thresholds are exceeded. And then lastly, you also think about it, this platform's ability to also provide monitoring correlation, it happens right in the management console, just like you see with a VMware. You don't receive that level of information in the hyperscaler platform simply because it's not a logical, accurate representation to see what's going on with your network interfaces, all the virtual things you have up in the hyperscalers. With a VMware cloud, you actually get to see that level of detail. We're built the same way. You get to see more details about your true resource consumption in this particular cloud.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff, for that. And I think that brings us to the top of the hour. So I'm just going to make a quick advertisement for the 21st of January. I'm going to be presenting with Jeff's support. When do I sell Zadara? How do I know when Zadara is the right fit? And so that's what we're going to be working on for January 21st. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jeff, and you can say your thank yous to the team.
Absolutely. So I want to thank everybody for investing some time with us today. Hopefully this piqued your interest that we have a new and differentiated offer that we can help you bring to your customers. And there's a lot of simplicity built into the model. Simplicity of the hosting model, since you don't have to worry about being tied to on-site or tied to a public cloud or vice versa. Simplicity in the way that it's architected, everything is inside the data center. So we don't have dependencies on remote clouds for command and control. And then lastly, the pricing simplicity. The ability to quantify for your customers really what they should estimate for that price to be. We'll get into that in the next discussion, but you'll be able to present with tools that we have for quoting and solutioning to really say, oh, here's your 25 servers. This is what they really look like from a budgeting perspective. So hopefully simplicity really stuck out today.
Thank you, Jeff. And on behalf of everyone here at Zadara and your host today, Justin Windsor, Jeff and Doug are presenters. My name is Joe Sacchetti. We love our partners. We look forward to partnering with you and in a very exciting 2021. And most of all, we wish you a happy and healthy holidays. And we'll see you on January 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.